Hey there, we have a new moon in the sign of Aries at 0 degrees. I'm going to get my pointer and show you. So you see here, we've got 0 degrees, 0 degrees. So then if you look to the right, you can see here Sun, Aries, 0 degrees, and just there. With this, we have, we'll run through. So we have the Sun and Moon in Aries. We have Mercury also in Aries at 5 degrees. We have Chiron in Aries, and we have Jupiter in Aries. We have the North Node in Taurus. We have Venus in Taurus, and we also have Uranus in Taurus. Gemini is going to be leaving in the coming days. Not Gemini. Mars will be leaving Gemini, moving into the sign of Cancer in the coming few days. I'll show you on Solar Fire, which I'll do shortly. So with this, we can also see that this is true Lilith. There are 3 Liliths there's 4, but 3 that I am more aware of in astrology. True Lilith is the resolution Lilith of the bunch of them. We have the South Node in the sign of Scorpio, and we have the North Node in the sign of Taurus. It's going to be moving out of there as well in the coming month and a half or so. We'll double check that. And then we've got Pluto at 29 degrees 58, and Saturn is at 1 degree of Pisces, and Neptune is at 25 degree of Pisces. So this is an interesting chart because what we have is that Pluto on the March 23rd will be moving into the sign of Aquarius. It will retrograde back in to the sign of Capricorn for quite a few months. And then by the end of the year, January, it will move into the sign of Aquarius, and it will remain there until 2044. So this is a big shift because the last time that Pluto was in the sign of Aquarius, I believe, is 1777. So let's look at this moon firstly, which is going to be, I will tell you actually, see this site here, you can go and get your own chart. So I want to give a bit of a boost to this page because I use astro-seek.com. So you can put horoscopes in like there, but you can put AstroSeek if you Google, and it will come up with this information. You can put in your birth data and have your own chart. So, and it'll explain it to you. So with this, we've got Pluto is square. I'll go through the aspects in a moment, but Pluto is square to, looks like it's square. I'll double check that in a moment. I did say in a moment. So let's do the moon in Aries to begin with here. So Aries keywords, think about the sun is there as well. It's to do with separation. It's to do with anxiety and separation. And also it can be to do with the self because it holds the first house. And it's also the equinox today as well. We've got where we can be a loner. It can be to do with sexual instinct, desire, nature, our identity, our freedom, independence, our impatience, and anger at limitations. It can be intolerance for weakness, instinct, because Aries wants to do things quickly. It wants to hurry up, yeah? It's initiative, initiation, expression of will, where we feel like we can be superhuman and a special destiny. So narcissism, you know, don't be frightened of that word. We've all got healthy narcissism as well as some unhealthy in us. But that's a word that is full of meaning depending on what you study. So self-interest, the warrior, pioneer. It can be paranoia. It can also be anger and rage, desire, nature. So I'll look at the aspects over on, I wanted to actually look at that North Node because I will go to Solar Fire and we'll see some aspects there, but it's much busier over there. So Pluto, okay, this is interesting. It's square to the node. So if you look Pluto, the node is here at 4 degrees. So what we've got going on currently, which doesn't look, you can't see it as clearly here, but the node is applying by 4 degrees 21. So this can give us a lot of great energy, and it can lead us to a focal point, the node square Pluto, but also the experiences are of power and powerlessness, and where we encounter our own shadows. So this is going to be collective. In the coming months, it will be in a direct square, which will last for quite a while, because the nodes and Pluto moves really slowly. It's 248 years, or maybe it's a bit more around the chart. And we've got the nodes, which are 18 years around the chart. So where we can have difficulty with this Pluto square is that it can cause inattention and feelings of obsession, and it can create forces that pull us in different directions and away from our focal point. So this is what we've got to look out for. And there can be misconceptions with it. So it's interesting times ahead for sure. And if we consider that Pluto's going to go retrograde and then it'll go forward again, this is going to be, backwards and forwards for a while. What you want to do when you're looking at a chart is know where it is in your own house. So I'll show you my chart in a moment. So it's a new moon, which goes ahead for 28 days. And what we have is that we've also got this sextile, semi-sextile, 60 degrees, sextile to the, just here, Pluto, Neptune. And then we have opposition. We know that the North Node is always opposite to the South Node. We've got that Saturn, which is restriction, opposite to Lilith, which has been going on for quite some time as well. When Saturn goes retrograde later this few months, it will mean that we'll see if it ties in with this true Lilith, actually, because we know that's going to go retrograde. The Mars is trine to the South Node, so we're pulling something in there. This is our direction. We have also, this is an I think this is an inconjunct here that's 150 degrees, if I'm correct. And then we have some other aspects that you can see here. We've got a sextile to Lilith and Mars there as well. So if we now go to astro.com, you see here, astro.com, you want to go here as well. Both brilliant sites. I use them both, as well as Solar Fire. The moon for me at 0 degrees will be in my 4th house. It's just crossed over my Saturn, because my Saturn is 27 degrees of Pisces. And what it will be doing is the sun around here is sextile to my sun. And the other thing that's going on there as well is that sun and the moon are in a square to my Jupiter. So this is my beliefs and higher education, all of these different things that Jupiter means. But my Jupiter is in the sign of Cancer up here. You can see there. So when you're looking at your chart, you want to know the house it's falling in, because then you'll understand the area of life that it's linking in with. So if we look at a new moon in the 4th house, I'll tell you mine, and then you can always Google yours. Just, when you get your time of birth, I'm 27 degrees Scorpio. When you have your time, then you can basically know where your rising sign is, and then you will know what houses the planets fall into. So this is vital, the rising sign, time of birth. So the 4th house for me is to do with home and the idea of family, of, relationship, family. People can have that, not have family, and have family of their own, if you get me. So a new moon or in the 4th house can show making improvements to your home, and that can be simply buying a few new things, or more advanced. It's also cleaning up the home and the personal space to make you feel better. It's getting rid of the clutter of the mind, a cluttered home. It can lead to a cluttered mind. So that's the 4th house. It's not to do, this is not to do with Aries, by the way. Fourth house. It's where one may want to spend more time bonding and renewing relationships. And it can also be where we open up about our true feelings with the fourth house, because it's below, it's the bottom of the chart, the lowest point of the chart, the fourth house. And it can bring to us the egocentric self, the feelings as well, the feelings that we have that are very deep or hidden. And it may bring deeper intimacy, and that may also be along with a stronger group of supporters to help protect you when you feel vulnerable. So if you feel vulnerable, then that can do that. It's also where you can be a better supporter of others. And it's also where the intuition can be more developed, and also where you can listen to those feelings as well. You can begin to listen to our feelings, because often we don't listen to the things we feel. You may experience that in life, that you feel things, but they can be coming from the outside, from the environment, and you don't really know what you feel yourself. And it takes time to get in touch when we're in a moment of peace or really trying to understand something. So it's a good period to fourth house, where you might be busy also and working towards the long-term goals using positive energy. So I'm doing that at the moment because I'm studying clinical hypnosis. So I'm doing a lot of study from home. Yeah. And I'm thinking about what I feel about what I'm doing and how I'm going to make it more comfortable for myself in my living space as well. So now, if I go back to this chart, you can see that moon is there. So let's go. The moon in Aries is feelings of uncertainty, which can make us solve problems faster than natural. So it can speed things up, but we don't want to rush where there are deadlines, because the thing is, with Aries, we can be impulsive. I have Venus in Aries at 18 degrees. So I know that, I've got to slow down in certain areas sometimes. Fifth house, I have my 18 degrees of Aries Venus. So trying to slow down so you can decide what you want to do and proceed at your own comfortable space. So don't be forced into things. Think about what you want to do for yourself. And though peacefulness can feel boring, which is quite, interesting, that if you're always in a flurry and busy and, feeling peaceful can feel boring. A lot of people who've had trauma feel that as they begin to heal wounds from the past, that becomes a time when things become quiet, and it can feel a bit odd. If you've always been in fight, flight, or spent most of your life in fight, flight, freeze, then when things begin to improve, it can be like, oh, what am I here for? What am I doing? So we can think it's boredom when actually there's some sort of normality about being at peace, like, sitting, just having time to stare out the window and look at the birds flying, or going for a walk and looking at the flowers grow, just slowing down. So before you rush and make impulsive decisions, slow down. Because the other thing is as well, when we're overly impulsive and trying to do too much, then we can use up a lot of energy, and we don't need to do that. We can balance ourselves. So we have the ability with this also to recover from trauma and gain strength when we need it. So it can make us a bit of a temper with the Aries moon sign as well. But it's also where we can feel frustration, but that can also fade away as well. We can be in and out of that. And on top of that, it can be a bit like we've got a battle on our hands, but if we remain calm and have an emotional rhythm going on, then that's better for us. And also, we may feel that we're under threat from the enemy or forces outside ourselves. And it's important to pay attention to the feelings of other people, because sometimes with Aries, we can, it becomes more about ourselves, which, the key words there that I used from looking at the moon, or the sign of Aries rather, we can see that There can be impulsiveness, which we want to look out for. Right, so next what I'm going to do is go to solar fire, okay? So let me see, new share. And I hope you guys are okay out there. I'm feeling a bit sort of, it's interesting, it's a new moon. I feel a bit peaceful today. And what it said about that, feeling a bit sort of, not bored, but a bit like interesting, because that Pluto is moving into the sign of Aries and Aquarius, new share. So let's look at this. Okay, so this is the new moon chart, but the moon you can see at this point, this is the 20th of March. So you see the moon, this is just about now in the UK, and it's at 16 degrees of Pisces. So let's do this. We're going to go emanate will, and then what we're going to do, I'll make sure I'm sharing right. Now, if I go, let's come out of that spotlight. If I do this and I go hours, so 16 degrees, okay? This was earlier actually today. The time now is a bit later. So this is more like where it is now. Okay. All right. So the moon is about 19 degrees right now of the sign of Pisces. So what's going to happen is that I'm going to go ahead by hours. You can see the planets move, 20th of March. So 21. And if we look at the moon, it's 22 degrees, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and there it goes, 0, 0. So then what we want to do is line it up, align it with the sun. And the sun you can see is 0047 there, 48 now. So at 0049, we have our new moon there. So with this, you can see I use a lot more aspects on solar fires. So you can see a lot more going on in here. It looks like a bit messy, doesn't it? But it's quite interesting. Like the other charts simplify it. This makes it look a little bit more complex. So we know that the sun is conjunct the moon, and it's about our own individualism. It's about the emotions of the feeling, it being in harmony. And it's our identity and our individuality, the sun. And also with the moon, it's to do with our feelings. And the sun conjunct Mercury. So watch this. The sun is also conjunct Mercury here. So the moon is conjunct Mercury as well because of that. And this is where that this aspect is subjective and creative, and we can express our ideas well. So again, where is that happening for you? You know, these planets, as we know, this is in my 4th house. So the sun is square Mars. So look here, the sun is square to Mars down here. So it's just there. And this can give us physical strength and the ability to work hard, but it can mean that we take unnecessary risks and we may be too impulsive, and it can make us excitable and selfish as well. But sometimes being selfish is a good thing, so don't look at it as being a bad thing. We can guilt trip ourselves for these emotions when we don't need to. The sun sextile Saturn, so the sun, and this is all of that I'm doing here is going to apply to the moon because the moon is in exactly the same spot as the sun. So the sun sextile Saturn, sun sextile, this is 30 degrees apart. This creates 2 groups of people. The first tend to give up when they encounter problems. And then the second, when they encounter problems, they are stimulated by them and perform better. So we probably know at different points in our life, we get, stimulated by problems and we can solve them. And other times we just feel like giving up. So it depends where we're at. So for me, Saturn is in my 3rd house at the moment, my communication, and the sun is in my 4th. Sun also conjunct Neptune is a big one for everybody. So the Sun conjunct Neptune here, 5 degrees apart there. It's where we have intuition, fantasy, empathy, and self-sacrifice. And it can make us a bit impractical. And it can also mean that we have, at this time, a great imagination, intuition, and a sense of harmony. But we can lack order. Like we're just floating around. If you can imagine, you're just floating around and getting nothing done. And I'm sure we can all relate to that as well. But we can translate big truths to each other. So collectively, we're working through this. You know, what is the truth of things? It's becoming very interesting out there the more the days go by. The Sun is sextile Pluto. So that Sun and Moon are really busy, hey, when we think about it. Sun is really hitting a lot of planets here. Sun sextile Pluto, it's harmonious and decisiveness, but it also can make us secretive and stubborn. So if you go here, you got the Sun sextile Pluto, so that's 60 degrees. Sextile, semi-sextile, 30. So we're learning here as well. It's like a bit of an astrology lesson I'm probably giving you whilst I read this. So the Moon is conjunct Mercury, the Moon is square Mars, the Moon is semi-sextile Saturn. See, so the Moon is doing the same thing. Moon conjunct Neptune, Moon sextile Pluto. I'll read the Moon sextile Pluto for you. So Moon sextile Pluto here, Moon Pluto, is harmonious. It can give a very intense emotional life, and also where we experience our emotions deeply. The Moon, I have at birth Moon square Pluto, which has caused me all sorts of shenanigans, if I want to use that word, in my life. It's not been an easy aspect for me. However, I see the gifts from it. So, and then also the planets are doing other good things, like Pluto's doing other things in my astrology that are quite nice. Then we have also, with the Moon to Pluto, we can have strong emotions, and also we can use feelings to control others. So there may be, because Pluto wants to do that. Pluto wants to be in control ultimately. And it can mean that we have an intense relationship with the birth mother if you have that. And but also think if you have Pluto conjunct the Moon, or Pluto square the Moon, or Pluto opposition the Moon, hard aspects are difficult to cope with, but we work them through. Mercury is semi-sextile to Venus. So Mercury is with Venus down there. You can see that we've got Mercury square Mars, impatience, quarrelsome. Yeah, that's what that's doing there. Mercury, Mars, because Mercury is the mind and Mars is. And then Venus sextile Saturn, Venus square Pluto. That's the hard one. Venus square Pluto is where we can love and hate with all our hearts, deeply and intensely. So we all have this going on in our chart that applies then to, on our own charts, that applies to the houses that we're in. And we've got the Mars trine Saturn, which is where we can work easily without getting, we can work, not easily, without getting tired. And it's where we can be careful and consistent. So Mars trine Saturn, Mars trine Saturn here. And that Mars is moving a bit slower than the Moon anyway, and the Sun. So what's going to happen is it will be like this for a few weeks by the looks of it, because 28, 29, 30. So it looks like they're going to be working together, Mars trine Saturn, because it's applying. And it's where we can be consistent and entrepreneurs in our own right, where we have excellent organization skills, and we like stability and security. And we don't like to take risks with this aspect here. Trine. Mars square Neptune is mysticism, imagination, fantasy, and illusions, unrealistic ideals, and it can create chaos. So Mars square Neptune, Mars square to Neptune here, but Mars is moving off. Jupiter, I'm looking at Jupiter, Saturn, sextile Pluto, the node semi-sextile Mercury, the node conjunct Venus. So let's see here. This is quite lovely. Node conjunct Venus. It's, you know, it's where we're graceful, pleasant, and affectionate. And it's, you know, beauty and art and good taste and harmonious focal points. So again, where is that happening for you? That's just moved, I think, into my 6th house, actually. No, 5th. That's in my 5th house currently. And then the node sextile Saturn, and then that node square Pluto is a big one. So let me show you. If you watch this, follow this through, I want you to see what's happening with Pluto. So we're going to go by days. So it's 29 degrees 58. And that's 22nd, it's 29:59. Then it goes 00. So if we look for the hour, this Pluto moves into the sign of Aquarius. Remember that song, The Age of Aquarius? I'm not saying that we're in the age of Aquarius. I know very little about those things, but I do know that Pluto is definitely moving into Aquarius on this day. So hours, I'm going backwards, okay? If you wonder what I'm doing, there's 29:59. So then if I go forward, then we know it's 00:00. This is UK time, which is 12:22:40. Now, if I want to know the exact minute, I'm going to minutes here, and then I go back one. As I move, there you go. So the exact minute, and then we can even go to the exact second. So if I go backwards, and I'm going backwards now in seconds. And if you can see this move, you'll see the seconds. There you go. That's it. That's our time. It looks like seconds. If I go back, back, that's it. And then I go forward. That's what it looks like anyway. So that's as close as I can get there. Seconds. So this will mean, if we look at it, if we go Pluto, so it's where we are drawn with Pluto in the 11th house. We are drawn, or Pluto, it's not Pluto in Aquarius, is where we feel drawn to powerful groups and experience powerful conflict with friends. So there's going to be a lot of breaking free of limitations because that's ruled by Uranus, Pluto in Aquarius. Saturn is involved too. And what I'd like to do is, if I read to you, I'd like to show you actually, I made some slides maybe over a couple of years ago, or even a year ago, Pluto Aquarius. I'll just share a couple of slides with you so you can read it, and then you can screenshot it if you want. That would be a good idea of what it says about Pluto in Aquarius. So Pluto was in Aquarius from 1777, and Pluto takes about 248 years to move around the chart, and it completes to make a complete cycle, spending between 12 to 32 years in each sign. So Pluto in a sign applies to a generation rather than the individual. So, but also in our individual charts, it's going to be our own soul journey because of the house it's in. So we want to look at the house position for ourselves, because whilst we have the generation, we've got our own personal chart. My Pluto is conjunct Uranus in the sign on my MC, literally 5 degrees, 4.5, 5 degrees off. So this is the generation, okay, Pluto Aquarius, of worldwide cooperation. So this does not mean the World Economic Forum, haha. They would probably really like worldwide cooperation. This is more to do with our own individual breaking free of limitations. But the other good thing about this is that we have the ability in this generation coming up to make scientific breakthroughs for the benefit of humanity. And I'm not talking about injections, by the way. We know what we mean there. I'm talking about other stuff. So, and it may be actually forced to change the way we view things, the things that are coming up. So we can't outrule anything. We can't say we don't like that. And we just got to play the game as it goes. I did read a book by Eric Berne, who wrote a brilliant little book on psychologists, psychiatrists, maybe. I can't recall, but he wrote a book called The Games People Play. So there are collective games, there are colloquial, maybe that's the wrong word. There are collective games that we play. There are cultural games that we play. We all do this, we all follow rules, so which become games, which are unspoken games of what's acceptable and what is not acceptable, depending on our belief systems, where we come from. And we work things through as we develop through life. So basically, Aquarius is more to do with being individuated and sovereign, but individuation does not mean being separate, because clearly we need each other. So at 0 degrees, the Sabian symbol for that is an Adobe mission. I don't know what that means. I will have to look that up. An Adobe, ADOBE mission. But I'm definitely going to look that up after this video to see what that means further. So we have got, with this Saturn in Pisces, we do have some issues with, maybe there could be a lot of people feeling lost. So for those of us that have done, not that, we're all in different places. I got away from addictions like, drinking and various other things I used to do in my past. And many years without alcohol now, 11 years this year. And I would say, but that doesn't really define, that drinking is not, I'm not going to label it bad. It's bad for some people. It's bad for some people. That's what I'm going to say, particularly if it's being used in a way that's tricky. And we know what we mean by that. And drugs and all sorts of things can really be detrimental if one is using them to dissociate and run away from their problems. So people can do it with painkillers, people can do it with the depressants, all sorts of different things that go on. But there's no judgment, because I've certainly done my fair share of a lot of different things in my life. And we grow and we develop. So we may need to be helpers here. I was born with Saturn in Pisces, and it meant, and mine is in the 4th house, which ultimately meant that I've come to realize that there is nothing really. I don't mean nothing literally. I'm not going to be literal. That home is not outside myself. And sometimes that place of feeling that, or coming to terms with that, can make the world a lonely place, because it means that even in relationship to others, that ultimately there are others, but we're in this space in our own structural container, which is our body, on our own. To a degree, Saturn. So you put Saturn in Pisces, and Saturn is to do with boundaries and teacher as well. But Saturn in Pisces could cause issues of, not feeling at home in the world. And if people don't understand that feeling or what it means, it could be very unsettling for them. So for those of us that are a bit more in the know, we need to hold other people's hands where we can. It doesn't mean being a martyr and, saving the world, but it definitely means being aware that if you've done work on yourself and you're in a sort of stabilized place, it's just be aware of what's going on around you, and maybe look at the people that maybe need a helping hand or guidance or information that they may need to improve their circumstances. Because sometimes, I think there's that saying, like, give a man a fish. I can't remember the exact saying, but you might get the drift of what I'm saying. If you teach a man to fish, that's far more helpful than just giving a man a fish. The saying, I can't recall exactly, but there we go. So on this day, which will be March 23rd, 2023, let's watch this go retrograde. So I'm going to go weeks ahead. We're going weeks from the 23rd, March 23rd. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then it's gone retrograde. So at 27th of April, so then it will go retrograde, and then it will move back into the sign of middle of June. And what is then going to happen is, if you look at the North Node, we've got this square going onto the nodes. In evolutionary astrology, this is called a skipped step. And you would have to maybe Google that meaning to get it. So we're trying to figure out something. And it looks like I've been taught that if you stand on the planet facing inwards, so your face is facing that way, you're not looking outwards, you're standing that way. The resolution node is on the right. So the resolution, it looks like, how we're resolving what we need to do is by something from the past. And if I've got that wrong, please point it out. But that's what I recall being told. The resolution node is to the right, or the left, sorry, the left. I won't say the word, it's to the left. So it's, and I hope I've got this right. I'm probably really confused, So I'll double check that and make sure I haven't given any misinformation there on what that is about. So let me show you something that I'm going to go to I'm going to read this for you as I promised. So new share, and I'm going to go to this, and I'm going to go, whoops, pointer, where are we? Spotlight. So I want to go here. Okay, so I'm literally going to read this to you. This is what Pluto in Aquarius means. Forget the 11th house bit, but Pluto here. And the reason I'm reading this, you'll be able to screenshot, yeah, if you want. I've got a couple of slides, and then I'll leave it for here for today. So there's lots of information out there. I've read Jeff Wolf Green, Pluto books 1 and 2. They're fabulous. I highly recommend you get them. But Pluto is where we sever all attachments that bind one from further growth. The severing of attachments accelerates growth in us. One may feel restricted by one's reality and cramps. So we may feel restricted by reality, okay? Be aware of that. The sense of being restricted will create inner compression. So an inner compression, that feeling of inner compression in our consciousness, like we all know that feeling. Compression forces open one's consciousness. So one way of putting a corner, so to speak, like on something, and we want change, and we're just dying for something to change. So the wish and desire is for individuation. During this period, all that has been repressed, including past life memories and the future, comes to the forefront. All is coming to the surface to allow the individual the required freedom from the past. So we're trying to break free from limitations, because this is Pluto, and then we got Uranus involved here, and a bit of Saturn going on in there too, as we know. Here one will detach at regular intervals. So we will want to detach at regular intervals, and we'll have that need and desire deep within. Alone time is required so that we can objectify and have the space and time to view the dynamics that have led to this time, because this is collective, okay? So just imagine that, over 8 billion people. When I've got my spelling right there, detaches, they can survey their life, and this allows for dispassionate analysis to occur. So that's quite Aquarian, dispassionate, like to look at something from a little bit of a distance and not be overly emotionally involved in it. We may feel insecure with regard to future thoughts and where impulses lead. We may feel that we have no control over our impulses. We may have a feeling of impulses have a life of their own. It's a good time to monitor repetition and only go towards actualizing those thoughts that keep repeating themselves. So, you have repetitive thoughts about, I must do that, I must do that, I must do that. Like, pay attention to those, not where you're guilt tripping yourself to do something, but where something like a flash of insight comes out at you. This is what Aquarius is about. It's about flashes of insight. The monitoring of external messages from others may also point to the future. So, if people keep saying something about something like, we need to, clean the water, we need something, clean water, or we need to start growing our own food, or we need to do something about our financial situation. You might see it out there, or you might be getting this in internal messages. Others are external guideposts, and others can validate us. So others are, other people are guideposts, because we watch, don't we? We watch people. And people also are not watching us, but, people who know us may be inspired by us, or they may think we're not so inspiring, depending on what we're doing and what we're up to. For whatever reasons, there can be different emotions involved in that. So I wouldn't take it too seriously. I'm just trying to explain. So the inner and outer conditions of anything concerning the past will need to be confronted in order to be free. So freedom comes from really looking at things. What's going on here? Then the next slide is, due to circumstances, we may have sudden clashes with friends or others that are karmic in nature that have not been resolved. So if we've got unresolved stuff, that may come up to be dealt with. There may be an opportunity for resolution, so we can be free of our karma. So I don't take karma as I've done something wrong. If we've behaved a particular way, or we're doing something, people can look at karma however it suits them. But the way I see it is that, there's stuff that happens that we just, shit happens, excuse my language, but it does. So it's not always that, it's your karma. That can be a bit of a spiritual bypass when we say that to people, particularly people who've been through severe trauma. We can see a trauma taking place around us, and we wouldn't, if you do say, that's your karma, that's just ignorant in my view, because we don't know. So if I say that to somebody, it's just your karma, it's bypassing and it's ignorant, because we really, really don't know. And that's my view. Somebody else may have a different view on this. Now, the good thing is that confrontations do allow for resolution between each other. That's how things change. During this time, we can terminate that which is unresolvable and where we're being held back from further growth. If we sense a natural parting of ways, then it's good to end on good terms. So clearly, it's always better to end things on good terms where we can, because we don't know what the future holds. So if we can end things on good terms, it's not always possible, is it? But where we can, we can. If one senses a natural parting of ways, then it is good to end on good terms. It's important to nurture relationships with those that allow and encourage our growth and allows us to be ourselves, and the same for others. So where others allow for one to objectify, and where individuation is being encouraged. So if you're being encouraged in healthy, good ways, those people are good people. Maybe not always, but we know who is who generally in our lives. The ending of some relationships will allow for new relationships to come in, which seems pretty obvious to me. When we end relationships, new relationships do come in. And I'm not talking about romantic relationships. I'm talking about all sorts of relationship, to work, to areas we live in, to countries we live in, to, people we deal with to supply our resources, and all sorts of things. It's big. And we're taking an evolutionary leap. Others who have walked the path can assist in helping to reconcile the events taking place, because there are people that are ahead of us that have done these things. People who are growing off the land, who are cleaning their water, who are not over reliant on Wi-Fi or social media or all of these other things. There are people doing different things. We have to open up to the ideas that there's not just one way, there are many ways. So validation from others on the path will allow for the freedom from the past and assist in the shedding of all that prevents necessary growth. There may be a drawing to others who have the same needs. Some restlessness may occur inwardly, so it could be restlessness, Uranian energy. This is also a time to encourage others' individuation and their growth. So even if it means termination, so somebody says, hey, I need to go off and do this, and, goodwill. It's not all bad. It's important to not let others restrict our own growth needs, and also that we don't restrict others' own growth needs, and to terminate things on a good note, which is, again, not always possible. But if we terminate things on a bad note, it can create negativity. And I've used the word karma, but as I've just said, what I feel about that word. Time of termination of what binds one to the past, a time to follow future orientated internal, external messages that are repetitive, which allows for our own large-scale evolutionary. Let me just see here. So I'll just read this to you. Pluto in evolutionary astrology relates to the soul and the soul's underlying evolutionary desires. It is the depth of our unconscious and out of our awareness. So Pluto's really, we don't see it, until sometimes it's in our face. And we can see that we may repeat unwanted patterns or experience the same repeating life issues. And we see this time and time again. If we came from trauma, we'll see it in relationships. If financial situations, collective situations, wars, again, here we go again. Yeah. Our Pluto placement and our transit holds information that, when understood, can smooth our passage from time. These pictures I've got from Google, so I'm sorry that I'm not saying who the artist is here, but I could dig deeper and maybe put them below the video at some point. So a natal chart represents our potential, and what we have been and where we are at and what we can become. So Pluto works in 3 ways in our chart, and then I'm going to leave it here for today, by the way. Pluto works in 3 ways. 1, cataclysmic due to resistance. So it's like a volcano, isn't it? It's like it builds up, it builds up, it builds up, and then, pew, cataclysmic. Willing to change too, willing to change in some ways and resisting in others. So, where we resist, sometimes we know, I want to do that, I've got to do that, I've got to do that. But we resist that change because we're in fear, we feel uncertain, the ending of a relationship, the beginning of a new career, the ending of something, living in an area we don't like, so many different things, but we resist, and then naturally we're pushed into it and we think, oh my God, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? We've all been there. 3, to jump in with one's heart and soul with a desire to understand and learn, eliminating resistance. So, I'm going to get on with this. I'm going to do this, that attitude. We have free will, and knowing this means we get to make choices. Yeah. Now, free will is, we're all going to die. We all hate bringing up the death word, but we're all going to leave at some point. This is part of the human condition. So, but at the same time, we don't have ultimate, forever ending, ever ending, never ending free will, but we do have, how am I going to cross the road? What things do I want to put into my body? What do I, we have free will to a degree, but then there's other things that just happen. So it's important that we look at the totality of a chart, and in evolutionary astrology, the baseline used will be Pluto and the North Node and the South Node. So let me stop this share, or do a new share back to the emanated page. So this is what's going on. And, new moon, Mars into the sign of Cancer, Pluto into the sign of Aquarius, Saturn is now in Pisces, and so much going on. And this is 15th of June. So then we do have that Pluto square the nodes. If I go that pointer, so that's 29 degrees. So if you watch this node here, because that's going to move into the sign of Aries. And you can see here, it gets in more to a square by July. So this is all year. Yeah, 29, 29. The 28th, this just goes on. Look, August. So it's from now, it's just happening. So the resolution node, I hope I'm correct, stand on the chart and it's to the left, but that's what I recall from the lessons I was being taught. Okay, catch you later. Thanks for watching. Enjoy this Pluto. The last time it went into the sign of Aquarius was 1777. Catch you later.